Okay. So I want to welcome everyone to Spiritual Sunday, where we're talking about empaths today. And I'm really excited about today's discussion. All of the sessions that we do are recorded. So if you miss one, or if there's one that you want to revisit, just let me know and I'll send you the link. And it's the link to where all of them are shared, and you can download and watch the one that you want to. So let's jump in. I wanted to start off with a quote to kind of summarize the topics that we're going to talk about today. And that quote is, "No empath is born skilled. We're just naturally born talents. Skilling up is up to us." So that's what we're going to work on today. Some of you may be familiar with what an empath is and used to only one type. And that's the type that's super duper sensitive and people think are highly emotional, but it's so much more depth to it than just that. So I'm going to go through, and let's start off by looking at the 6 of the major types, and then we will dive into it. And then the last slide that I have, we go over some superlatives, some that aren't as widely. All right, so let's move forward. And if everybody, there we go. Just mute your line, and that way we won't have any background. If there's any questions at any point, feel free to unmute it and just ask me, and I'll stop at certain points. As we go through, try to figure out what type of empath you are. And if you have any questions about any of them, just let me know. Okay, so the first one is emotional. We're going to talk about the emotional empaths, who they are, what are their special superpowers. We're going to discuss the physical and medium empath too as well. Okay, and then after that, we're going to discuss geomantic.
So you are not sharing the screen?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Casey. And then we're going to discuss animal empaths too as well. And then plant. And the last one, intuitive. All right. So let's jump in and let's talk about the first one, emotional. So for people who are emotional empaths, all right, they are going to pick up the emotions of other people. They're going to be able to tap into the feelings of others. And sometimes they can get confused that the feelings that they feel themselves are their actual feelings. When no. Really, you're just picking up on the feelings of other people. So this is the one that most people think of when they think of empaths. They think of emotional empaths. So let's talk about the benefit of being able to feel other people's feelings and what that can do for the world, what it can do for humanity. So someone who's an emotional empath, they have that ability in order to be able to guide people to some form of healing, okay? Guide people to some form of healing. So think of it as a combination of someone being an interpreter as well as a GPS. And interpreter because sometimes our emotions can be so thick, so heavy, that it prevents us from logically seeing our way through a situation. But when you have someone who's an emotional empath, then you are able to guide someone to get through. But if you are so caught up in the emotions yourself, because you feel them, if you're caught up in emotions yourself, then that can prevent you from giving them good advice. It can prevent you from guiding them to the right place. So it's very critical that as an empath, an emotional empath, that you're able to differentiate between what's your emotions and those of others. Okay? So I'm going to share with you my personal experience around being an emotional empath. How do you determine? How do you determine when what you're feeling is truly your emotions and when what you're feeling is someone else's? For me, and you can check yourself if you think you're this type to see if the same thing applies for you. When I first realized that I was an emotional empath, and this can be pretty traumatic for people who do not know they're an emotional empath. The people who are emotional empaths and don't know it think that they're an emotional wreck. But for me, if the feeling that I would get was in my stomach, in my gut feeling, that some people will call it. For me, I knew it was my true feelings, the deeper inside of me it was. Like deeper inside versus surface level. If it was surface level, closer to the surface of the outside of me, then I knew this was not my emotion, but I was picking up the emotion of someone near me. Okay. So to repeat it again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. The way I determine is when I scan myself, and if the feeling is deeper inside of me, then I know that's my true feeling. If it's closer to the surface, then I know that this is someone else's emotions. So that's how I identify. Now, what do you do after you identify? Because you don't want to be caught up in the emotion and be unable to help people. Okay. Will, can you kindly remind everyone to mute themselves? Okay, great. Casey, can you keep an eye on the chat for me? Because I know I want to get in the flow sometimes. And anytime, just feel free to unmute and hop in and tell me or remind me or bring up if anyone has any questions to stop me.
Yeah, there is one question already.
Okay.
But can you be more than one type of empath?
Absolutely. Yes. And you will find that the more evolved you are, you can be all of them. All of them. It's almost like Michael Jordan, great basketball player. He had certain gifts and abilities that he was born with that I can probably never be as good in basketball as him, no matter how much I practice. I can get better though. So some people will have a natural talent they're born to in one area, but whether or not you practice that gift, work that gift, you can get stronger in that area. But you also, as you continue to meditate, as you continue to grow and focus, you can adopt others, which was new to me until I started to research the different types of empaths and realized that through this, I'm several. So great. Was there any other question, Kiesya?
Yes, there is one more question.
Okay.
And how to know it's on surface or deep inside?
Well, it's kind of like it's a feeling. You feel it. Okay. And as you monitor yourself, as you scan yourself, you're going to start to notice that one thing feels different than another. Just over time, you'll be able to say. Okay. So you just keep an eye on it and monitor it. It wasn't something that I figured out in myself immediately. I just started to look and ask myself, is this the way I feel, or am I picking up on someone else? And it kind of was like me asking my higher self. And by asking and focusing on that, then it became obvious to me that one feeling or this one time was towards the outer and that the inner. And that's how I picked up on it. And when you start paying attention and asking yourself, you'll see that too. Okay. Anything else, Kiesya?
No.
All right.
Done.
Now, what do you do if you're an emotional empath and you want to be able to maximize your skill set and abilities? You have to be able to have a shield. And this shield becomes very helpful. We don't have to worry about that too much now with the lock-ins and the coronavirus going globally. So we're not in an environment where you have hundreds or thousands of people in one place. But for an empath, an emotional empath that walks into an environment, a crowd, all these emotions are being thrown at you. You can be on an emotional roller coaster. And you're like, I don't understand what's going on. And even in a scenario like this, where someone isn't beside you, but we're still all connected. We're in, Della's in from Ghana, Africa, right? Muskan from Nepal. We have India, we have USA. We're all geographically in different places, but emotional empaths can still pick up on the essence of the emotions of people, even through this. So being able to put a shield, what I do is once I feel someone's emotions, I truly know where they're coming from. Then I put a shield around myself that pushes out their emotions, and I'm only within my emotions. And from the experience of knowing what they feel like, then I can guide them to comfort. I can guide them with the right logic to get them there. So I do a lot of business coaching. I do a lot of personal coaching. And each time, as an emotional empath, I am tapping into the way someone feels. We are one. And then after I understand where they feel, then I put up the bubble. And it's just intentions. It's super easy. So everybody right now, what you can do is just imagine that a bubble surrounds you, and that bubble does not let any energy, any emotion that is not yours to penetrate that bubble. So the emotions that aren't yours, you can have pushed out. It's just a matter of inhaling and then exhaling with that intention to push out the opposite emotion of yours. When I first have the bubble circle me, I imagine that the bubble comes from my heart and that a beam of light comes up out of my top of my head and circles around me. That's what I do. You can use your own technique. It's a matter of intention. It's your will. If you have a clear intention and will, then the universe bends around you. And the more you practice this, if you know you're going into an environment where there could be hostile emotions, that happens to me all the time in business. People who have ill intentions against each other, and sometimes even against me. And when I imagine the bubble coming up, it shields me from being caught up in the emotions of that environment. Okay. The other thing that you can do is that you can take your energy ball, because I think it was last week that we played with feeling your own energy. Okay. You can take your energy ball and you can project it out further. Yep, it was last week because we were talking about how far out your energy goes in your chakras. So if someone that you're coaching or counseling, and sometimes I do this, is that I use my energy to shield them from their own emotions. Now, if you're not meditating, if this is the first time that you're hearing of these concepts, unless you're naturally gifted in this area, it's going to probably take some practice for you to get there. For those of you who are familiar and who have been meditating, and especially those of you who have a natural talent for this, it's going to come quickly to you. But you can shield yourself, and then you can also project your energy out to shield someone else too as well. Okay. Before I move forward, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions from anyone, because this is the one that people normally associate with the most, and they may have some other questions. Jerry, sure, go for it.
Yeah, as an empath, do you can you sense entities that are hanging on an individual, whether they're good or bad?
Okay. So let me rephrase it to make sure I understand. You're asking me if I'm talking to someone and there's another spirit or there is someone else's emotions that is being attached to them, am I able to see it or feel it?
Yes.
Okay. So the answer is yes, but not from the lenses of an emotional impact. I feel it from the lenses of an intuitive. Let me see if I can back up to the last screen. This one, claircognizant, the intuitive. That empath in me sees that in others. So today we had like a full class, but I was starting to get messages from people asking if they could have the link and join. And one person wanted to join my earlier discussion and started to tell me about her challenge. And it became obvious to me, just by kind of feeling it, that she was an emotional empath. And that's why the negativity kept hitting on her. She just couldn't get in a state of being positive. So logically, we kind of know we need to be one way, but emotionally we feel stuck or stagnant. And the reason why is people are emotional empaths and they don't know. They end up drinking. We can look at people in our lives and our family who were really emotional empaths, but no one taught them how to put up a shield. When I first started doing this, being a kid, growing up, I was into Fantastic Four. And there was this guy named Torch who used to say, "Flame on." And when he said "flame on," he would catch on fire all over. So when I wanted to put up my shield, when I was working at Motorola, I was head of global sales training. Before I went into a meeting, I would say "flame on." And just by saying "flame on," that was a trigger that I had a shield around me. You're only limited by your imagination when it comes to this, and how you activate your inner power to protect you, to protect others, to even to feel and sense what is the right thing to do. Any other questions or comments around the emotional one? Okay. So I'm going to keep going. This one, I'm going to go into physical empaths, medical empaths. And for several years, I have studied a gentleman named Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce, which is crazy, his whole place, or I guess his headquarters for Edgar Cayce, he's no more, he's deceased. That a long time ago, but he's from my hometown. Or at least his place was in my hometown, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And it wasn't until I was long gone from Virginia Beach, Virginia, that I knew about him. And this past October, I went on a retreat to Egypt, sponsored by the organization that he founded. Edgar Cayce is the most documented medium in the world. There are thousands of documented readings that he did. So I want to try to speak in a way so that everyone on this group can understand. So for those of you that are familiar with the term medium or psychic or reading, I'm going to try to break it down and explain it so that everyone will be able to understand. Edgar Cayce was a medical medium, and he had the ability to go into a trance type state and to identify what was physically wrong with somebody else, anywhere they were in the world. He could tell you the cause. He could tell you what things to do to heal themselves. Okay. And the amazing thing was that 1920s, 1930s, he is suggesting certain cures for people that don't exist at that time. That's how amazing it is. And there's a membership, I have one, to his library, his records. They have made it digital so that someone can type in a problem, high blood pressure, and you will be able to read the readings that he gave to someone in 1925, around that. So that's just one style of someone being a medical or physical medium. A medical or physical medium is someone who possesses the ability to know the physical well-being of someone else, and they just shouldn't. Another way, my personal experience, is through pranic healing. So I'll show you one of the books I have on my shelf. I went through a course a couple of years back. Hopefully this comes through and saying, all right, pranic healing. So pranic healing, and I think I spoke about this last Sunday. In this particular discipline, it's the ability to scan someone's body, even your own, in order to identify what's wrong with them physically. And it's an exercise you can do with friends too as well to practice. And what I put here, I guess I might be skipping a little bit ahead. Scan, scoop, feel. So those people that are using their hands to kind of like feel where someone is that everything is energy. And you can either have a surplus or a depletion in a particular area. So based on that, you're able to scan the body to see where's the depletion or surplus. And with hand movements, be able to scoop out, okay, if it's a surplus, or scoop out if there's some negative energy. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and see if there's any questions on the chat, or if anyone. Edgar Casey, a very fascinating gentleman. You can study him for years. Are there any questions, Casey?
No.
Okay.
Okay, we got one, I guess. Yeah. How do you protect yourself if you move the energy?
All right. Great question. So if you're using a technique around pranic healing, what they teach is that when you have energy on you, you scoot it off. It's almost like it's a physical thing. If you had to wash your hands, you would scoot it off. Something else is that when you scoot off the negative energy, you imagine a blue light, a blue flame comes up to burn off the negative energy, a blue flame. You also are supposed to put that flame back out. And it's just imagine in your mind, with your mind's eye, okay? The other thing is that when you scoop the energy, you can have a bowl, you can have water in the bowl, and you have salt inside that bowl. So that when you scoop the energy and you flick it or cask it, that it gets attracted or pulled in to the bowl with the salt. I don't particularly like that technique anymore, because if you spill the water, okay, yeah, that's not a good thing. But a blue light is something you can do and have anywhere. But there are some people who use the water and salt in order to drag in that negative energy. So you scoot it off with your hands, okay? Blue light to burn off the energy. You just imagine the blue flame and then extinguish it, okay? You have water with salt that you can send the energy to, and then you take the water and you can pour it and dispose of it in the toilet. I would not suggest pouring it on the ground. You will see that grass will die to this negative energy. Okay. All right.
There is one more question.
Sure.
Can we develop this ability?
Absolutely. Everything that we're talking about can be developed. Everything. It's just a matter of, if you want to develop this ability, I was not naturally a physical medium. I took a course, I studied, and it was an innate ability that began to come out more and more. All of us are healers. It's just a matter of what type of empath you are, and you'll be able to heal people naturally one way quicker than another. But if you continue to practice, yeah, you can definitely learn.
And as you said that the psychic used to give the reading based on the type of disease they have. So what sort of reading he used to give? Like what caused it?
Uh-huh. Okay, so Edgar Casey went through a transition. He was a die-hard Christian, old school, like Pentecostal Christian for people who are in the USA. And what happened was, because of his Christian and religious beliefs, certain Eastern philosophy, then reincarnation, stuff like that, that was never on his radar. So what he would do is he would lay down and then he would basically meditate and get into a deep trance and would not remember anything he said. And there would be someone that would interview him. And over the years, what they came to realize was that Edgar Casey was tapping into the Akashic records. He was tapping into what some religions will call the book of life. Anything and everything that could ever happen to humanity is in this large spiritual library. And he was able to tap into that library, gain the right information. So while he was asleep, they would say the person's name and they would say the location. And then once he was able to tap in and find their record, he would say, okay, I am with the being. And in the beginning, Kiasia, he started off just giving people physical things because that's what they came to him for. Presidents, movie stars, average people. Towards the end of his life, he was doing, I think, over 8 readings a day, which was very draining on his body. And he was even told that he needed to slow down or he was going to be no more. But something inside of him drove him to want to keep going. But there was some point in his life where he was given a reading and the question was, why is this person having this problem? And the answer came back, well, in his other life, when he lived in Egypt, and after he came out and they told Edgar Casey what he said, he was like, I don't believe in reincarnation.
Okay.
That really didn't matter. The answer was the answer. So his followers were like, well, we need to start asking some different questions. And from that, all this information started to come down, including his past life. And information like we all know each other, that all of us have had so many past lives that there are no strangers on this planet. At some point, you were my garbage man or my maid or my mother. Or So that's what came out with Edgar Casey. He had a natural ability he was born with. And then over time, he began to work on it. He made a system around it. And then the system expanded to give him more information than he asked for. And he was like, damn. And then that just led to a whole nother game. That's the same thing that can happen to all of us. All of us are always one action away from being able to change the entire world. And when we become open to it, based on the empath we are, and that's why I chose this topic, because there's so many different empaths, or so many different things that when I talk about it, I'm like, I think my mother may be this, or I think I may be that. Okay. Any other questions?
And one more question. Like all psychics are empath?
Oh, that's a great question.
They must be.
So, all psychics are empaths, but all empaths aren't psychics. It's probably the best way to put it.
Got it.
Okay. Any more? All right. Well, I'm going to go on to the next one. Okay. Yeah. The one thing I would say about this, since you brought up psychics on here, you see I have scan, psychics, and spirits. So scanning is like the pranic healing, where you scan the body, when you see how much energy and where they are. Psychics can sometimes receive information from people who have passed on, who are no more, who are guardian angels, some people call them, or ascended masters. They get information from other sources other than having an x-ray and getting a physical report from somebody. Okay. The next one, geomantic. All right. Now we're starting to get into those that maybe aren't mainstream, but could apply to you, but you just didn't know. All right. So for the geomantic, this is more about geography, physical location. So this is someone that can walk into a room and you're like, this room sucks. Something really bad happened here, because everything is energy. And if you've been in a room where somebody was beat for years, it leaves that imprint. That energy is there and you feel it. Sometimes people think they see ghosts and spirits when there's not like a ghost or spirit. You're seeing an energetic shadow of something that transpired before. Sometimes you walk into a room and like, oh my God, this is a great feeling. This room is lovely. I have a room in my home that's on the other side of my office here where I meditate. So when you walk into that room, it's light. It feels great. It's just relaxing because that energy is there. So someone who's a geomantic empath, they feel the physical space and they're able to attune to it. Now, people who are like this, if you're wondering if you are, or if anybody you know is, they're normally drawn to sacred stones, churches. I went to Stonehenge. Let me tell you, that place feels a whole lot different than Washington, D.C. I went to Sedona. I went to Bali. There's a lot of places that from last week, we talked about Earth, the planet, having chakras. Well, people who are geomantic empaths, when they go to these physical locations, whoosh, 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 they feel it. When I went to Ghana for the first time, the place physically, being in Africa physically, felt different than when I was in Paris. Going to India physically feels different than when I was in Singapore. Does feel close to when I was in China. So geomantic empaths are tapped in to the physical locations. And if you ever had to go house shopping, you just know. House beautiful. Has a great location. Super cheap price. And you just walk in and like, I don't care if it's free. I am not taking this crib. So Mercury retrograde tends to have a strong impact on geomantic empaths. So I relate to this one too. When technology and just overall feeling and relationships, Mercury retrograde is a great time for severing of relationships. It becomes a whole lot easier to cut cords. People who are geomantic empaths are very sensitive to this. So my personal experience, I went to Sedona, which is in Arizona. is one of the most sensitive places on our planet. The veil between our reality, our existence, and the spiritual world is very thin. They even have two locations. One is male energy and one is female energy. It's like a hillside area, even though it's in the desert, okay? Where you literally feel the difference in the energy. And one of my tour guides was talking about how he saw a fairy down by the water in this particular location. People who are geomantic may find that filling their house up with plants, natural scents. It's like the difference between my wife and I. Like, I love the natural scents and plants and aromatherapy. My wife, yeah, she's not too keen on it. But she's not a geomantic empath either. So those type of things can have a stronger impact on some than others. Now, why is this important, or how can you use this to your advantage? Number one, if you are this type, then it will be a benefit for you to be in nature. I have a forest trail behind my house, and when I walk through it, I feel energized, like quickly. It's a quick way for me to get a burst of energy when I'm drained. You can also identify those places where the global chakras are, and either visit there to tap in to try to increase your abilities, or even have pictures of those geographic places around where you are. I had a friend at a spiritual church who was an artist who drew Stonehenge. And I have a picture of that in my office to be able to tap into that type of energy. Also, someone who's a geomantic empath could do a wonderful job around saving the planet, conservationists. They will be able to be more naturally sensitive to that and would enjoy that. Use what you love to fight what you hate, all right? Okay, I'm gonna pause and see if there's any questions on geomantic or anything I said before going to.
Yes, we have few questions. But what is the meaning of geomantic?
Geography. That's the easiest way to explain it.
Okay.
Like where physical location.
All right. So we have two questions. One is from Mobo. Is it a fair statement that any anomalies that people have is from past lives, like obesities, etc.?
Okay, say that again. Read that again to me.
Is it a fair statement that any anomalies that people have is from past lives, like obesity?
I think the word I didn't understand was
Anomalies. I also don't know.
anomalies.
Can you please? Yeah, maybe. ANOMALIES.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is possible. So let me see if I can rephrase the question, or who asked that question?
Mobile.
Mobile. I think that's someone who, it may be Parvin or somebody who is on a mobile phone. I don't think it's somebody named Mobile. That would be a cute name to have Mobile. Whoever asked that question, feel free to unmute and tell me your question and rephrase it. I think that from what I heard, I would summarize it that, is it possible that any hangups that you have, or any things that aren't easily explained, is probably leftover resonance from a past life. And the answer to that is an easy yes. And next week, actually, we're going to be talking about reincarnation and how it's helpful and how people can use it just to get caught up in the drama of like real life soap opera versus using it to actually do some good help. Okay. Casey, is there another question?
Yeah, we have a question from Muskan, but I guess that will be to entirely a new topic. But she's asking out of topic question, but I'm curious to know if the horoscope reading works or if it's true.
Okay. So the answer to that is, does medicine work or is it true? Some medicine is fake. Some medicine is expired, out of date. Some medicine is bad. So it really depends on the source. So as it relates to astrology, there is absolutely a science in that. And I think it was 2 sessions ago that we touched on deeply around astrology and its impacts. But yeah, there is something to it. But just like anybody can say they're a psychic and give you a psychic reading, anybody can write down a horoscope. It just really depends on the source. Just like anybody can say they're a doctor and have never been to medical school. So, good question. Okay.
Yeah, and who can I refer to see and know my horoscope?
Me. Send me a message and I guide you in the right way for someone to help you with that. Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I'm going to go to the next one. All right. Animal. Now, for this one, someone who is an animal empath. Whew, yeah. I was playing around with whether or not I was going to, how personal I was going to get with this one, Kiesia. Oh, well, I guess all the way. So, someone who is an animal empath has a strong connection to animals. They have the ability to communicate with animals. And I try to keep an open mind. And yesterday, I had someone who's an animal empath do a reading on my dog, Bonaparte. Yep. And I can tell you how it went. So this particular person who did a reading on my dog, Bonaparte, I had to take a picture of Bonaparte. And then after I took a picture of Bonaparte, I sent it to her in text. I told her my dog's name, and I told her the people who were in my house. She told me that she would take a few days to communicate with my dog. And then I was allowed to ask questions. So I typed out 10 questions that I sent to her. And after a week, yesterday, we had a session where she told me what she got back. And I was quite amazed. This person came highly recommended by 2 people who I respect within the spiritual community. One is a dear friend of mine that who's a spiritualist. We attend the same church. And another was I consider her to be a spiritual master who normally, her psychic abilities are more like at a galactic, interdimensional level. She too spoke highly of this person. And the feedback was that the animal had been reincarnated many times, just like we hear reincarnation with others, that there was times where the animal had a human form, had been a plant, had killed and also been killed. And the animal expressed that he had a life purpose, a reason for being here, and even a reason for being with my family. And many, many other things that honestly kind of left me not uncomfortable, how shocked, unnerved. It's very hard to get me unnerved. It was very interesting. It wasn't at all what I thought it would be. And that's normally what happens when you're open-minded and you try to look and seek out new experiences. So I wanted to tell you about my own personal experience. Just wasn't sure how much I was going to tell you. But animal empaths, like I know someone who is a willpower warrior of ours who loves animals, who has a connection with animals that arguably some people have a stronger connection to animals than they do human beings. Well, they're definitely an animal empath. How you communicate with them, with my own experience, you kind of just know. Like with my dog, until I spoke with this animal empath yesterday, I kind of felt like I knew what my dog was kind of expressing to me. I kind of felt like the ideas and thoughts I had in my mind when I spoke to my dog, that my dog understood. Almost kind of like, if you know comic books, Aquaman. His thoughts, he's able to send it out like, woo, to different animals. You can receive guidance, spiritual guidance from animals. And what I put up was actually a meditation that I used, but I didn't really, I'm going to use it a little bit more after yesterday. So this is a HemiSync audio. It's like a series. And one of the series, they help you to meditate as voice guided around receiving guidance from animal spiritual guides. So I put that up there just so I can talk about it. In so many different ways that people are able to touch and tap into different things. This is just one empath. So I've seen the lights blink a few times. I can just imagine there's probably some questions.
Yeah, so oh wait, your dog had been a human before?
The reading has stated, so yes. And the reading has stated that in one incarnation that the being was Matthias, who was the 13th disciple of Jesus. That when Judas killed himself, the disciples had wanted to choose another 12th disciple. And it came down to being two people, Barabbas and Matthias, if I'm pronouncing it right, Matthias. And they couldn't decide, so they ended up throwing lots, like pretty much rolling dice to figure out who was going to be the 12th one. So the new 12th one wasn't decided by Jesus, it was decided by the disciples. So Matthias was a being who chose an incarnation of Bonaparte. And part of the reading, to me, learning lesson for me, was that the most enlightened beings take on all different aspects of life, to see life from every single angle, from being killers to being saviors, in order to have greater empathy. That's the word empath too, right? To all life. So Yep, I said all of that out loud. All right, Casey, what's the next question?
There is no question, but Muskan says that yes, your dog actually gives you a sign if something bad is going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Muskan again. So I so relate with this one, when Nepal had an earthquake of 2015, uh, my dog, I have a dog in my home, which is of Apso breed. His name is Popuro. So when there was a time of earthquake, he was more curious before it arrived. He was walking around the house. He was, looking to everyone's face, and then earthquake happened. Similarly, when we go out and something, if there is something going to happen, mainly focusing back to us, then he shows a different sign. He doesn't have his lunch at the morning, or he just stays with you. He doesn't leave your room. He sneaks around you, and and yeah, in a nutshell, I so relate with this guy, this one, very very familiar.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I got to tell you, I felt a little unnerved after what I experienced. But there were certain things that this lady had told me that she received by communicating with my dog that no one who hasn't been to my house should know. And certain things about my past and what I consider to be my life purpose that she was able to receive by communicating with my dog without, she just shouldn't have known. So the combination of the entire message made it so, and just the depth of the different things that came out of that conversation just showed me that we can have guides, spiritual guides, that can be in the form of a friend, a plant, a pet, just so many different things that it was just a totally new door to me, and I have seen a lot. So thank you, Muskan, for sharing that. If this is what you are, if you're this type of empath, then if you want to take your skills to another level or wonder what could be done, animals can be used to heal humans in many ways. Like an animal, you can be upset with your dog, and then 5 seconds later, the dog is just has totally forgotten about you being upset and just wants to shower you with love. What if human beings were more like that? There are people whose heart can be broken or hurt, and just the unconditional love of an animal or a pet can heal them. So people who are able to be animal empaths, anywhere from the lady who gave a reading and the impact she had on me, like there was information that I had to end up giving to my wife and to my son based on what this lady said, to being able to utilize animals to have a stronger emotional connections with maybe somebody who doesn't trust people anymore because they've been hurt. Okay, I want to stop there. Any other questions, Casey?
Yeah. Was it expensive to do?
No. Well, I guess everything is relative, right? Expensive compared to what? I'm trying to remember the cost of it. I hate prices. To me, prices and money just seem so limiting. That's why I have these meetups for free. I don't like the money. It cost me $40 for it. It's either 40 or 60. Whoever asked that question, thank you for reminding me because I need to pay that lady. She's going to send me an email link on PayPal. I need to pay her. I don't want her to do a communication with my dog and say, bite him in the butt because he didn't pay. Okay, any other questions? Cool. Oh, by the way, for the person who asked,
Yeah, there is.
it was based on a 30.
Can you send out her info?
Say that again.
He needs an info.
Sure. Yep. Just tell him to message me through the group, and then I'll get that to him. It took me about 2 weeks to do it myself. My friend had it done, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me try it out. What do I have to lose? I didn't know what the process was. But she was great. So just message me through the meetup if that's how we're connected, and I'll get that for you. Okay. Now the next one. Plant. Similar to animals, and my mother is absolutely a plant empath. When I was a little kid, you would think I had like a brother and punched him in the eye if I was running through the house and I tripped over one of her plants and like knocked it down or something like that. And my mother would talk to her plants. So we had these plants throughout our house, like all different kinds. And we lived in the city, but my mom was definitely, she's still here. My mom is a plant empath. People intuitively sense what plants need. You know if you are a plant empath. Also, plant empaths get message and information from trees. The pranic healing course I went through, we had an exercise where we went outside, and I realized I had I got this too. If you look at a tree and you look at the outer edges, like I'm looking out my window now, and there's a tree directly outside my window. And if you look at the edges, for me, and if you're a plant empath, you will be able to see this too. It's almost like a string of lines, like going on around the outline of that tree. It's the energy from the tree. You will be able to see it. Crystals. So I have what they call a mother-in-law plant. And when I first started looking at crystals, and I have some on the screen there, and then I got some right here. There are certain crystals. I got all, which way did I go? Oh, I went to the last one. There we go. Certain crystals empower vegetation, empower plants, empower trees. So I took moss agate and I planted it in the soil of my mother-in-law plant. That's just the name that they call it. It's like big leaves that come out, right? The very next day, after I put that stone, I put two of them, put the stone in the dirt, a whole new mother-in-law plant has sprouted out about that much out of the dirt. The next day, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I totally believe in this. So moss agate, if you have plants, you can buy that crystal. We had a session, I think it was last week, on crystals. I think we did. So that's the one you can buy and just put it in your pot. I'm of the belief that if something is spiritual, it should be evidential. You should see something or feel something or know something that lets you know is real and it exists. So try it out. anything that I say, don't just take me at my word. Oh, well, this guy been around, or he did this, so he must know that. Try it for yourself. Let's see, my experience talking to trees, seeing energy. I told you that. A tip for people who are this way, or if you want to be this way, take 3 days and try to sit by a tree for 30 minutes or an hour. And you could just be reading a book. And when you do that for those 3 days, the tree begins to connect with you and you begin to connect with the tree. Whether conscious or unconscious, it just happens. And then after the 3rd day, reach out to the tree through your mind's eye and your thoughts. Ask questions. Say, how are you? You'd be surprised what comes back. I don't know if I said this or not. I went to the Monroe Institute in the mountains of Virginia, Shenandoah Valley. And I met this lady who communicated with rocks, with crystals. And she told me how this old rock had told her a super old story. So any information you think is lost, just because human beings weren't there, or you don't know a human being who was there, you may know a being that was there, from an animal to a plant to a crystal. Okay. Anyone who is of this type, you may make an excellent herbalist. The herbs, knowing what to do. You may have been an alchemist in another life too as well. Okay. Any questions on that, KXN? Any tree huggers?
No.
Okay. And now we get to the last one. Okay. Intuitive. Someone or something that is not, oh no, that's not this. I got the wrong notes on that. Okay. So for this one, I gotta type it out. This is left over from my time management training this morning when I used the same thing. This person just knows, has a feeling. Okay. None of this is correct. I'm just going to have to talk my way through this one. All right. So this one was my root one. This is the one that I naturally came into. When I have, when I know things about people, when I'm able to give someone an answer or what's going to happen in the future, or something that happened in their past, or knowing which direction is best to go on. When I speak, I say, I see this happening, or this is what transpired. It's not because I actually see it. It's not because there's a image, a movie that was seen, but that the feeling, the impression is so strong, it's as clear to me as if it was a picture. So you could be this. You could be this type of empath and have such a strong feeling, all right? That feeling, like trust your feelings, that feeling is so strong. It's as if it's like an image that you saw it or smelled it or heard it. It's like, this person said this. Like, I heard in my mind this person said it, but it's not really hearing. That is just the closest word, language to describe something that is really undescribable. So for me, it's a feeling. It's a feeling that's so strong and intense and shaped in such a way that it leaves the same amount of effectiveness or impact as if it was a visual image. Yeah. Okay. Now, the last one. what I wanted to do is show you all some that aren't as well known. So this one, a mirror empath, it's a Native American term, that's where it originates from, that pretty much describes a mirror. So these type of empaths, they feel or sense the emotion of others, and they kind of assume, almost like a chameleon. They assume that personality, if it's big, if it's wide. You may see some mediums sometimes that channel other beings or other spirits or other people, and just the manner in which they talk. They may be a little sheepish, but when they take on that particular channel, they become big. They match the energy that they're communicating with. So when I went through this and found out about these, I started to think, you know who these empaths are? Actors, the best actors. They're taking on a role. They're taking on a person, and they're mirroring how it should be. People who do movies about real people, the Ray Charles movie, where the guy won an Oscar, right? He's this type of empath. Those method actors that you know who can take on a persona of the person they're trying to be, and they're just locked in there. That's what they are. So while we're utilizing these people to have great movies or entertainment or to pass time, the spiritual aspect of it is this. And how you use it is, some people don't realize they are a jerk until they see it. I know somebody who was my boss, and the attributes of them as a boss was kind of jerkish. And when I was able to connect with them again and see them in action, I was able to see me in action. And I was able to see, wow, I'm being too tough or hard on my team. Or, wow, this is a jerkish thing to do. Okay. So people who fit into this are able to take on a persona to show somebody how bad you really are. Or they're able to take on the persona of somebody so that they're able to see how wonderful and beautiful you are. Jerry's a beautiful human being. So if I am talking to Jerry and I use my abilities to be a mirror empath to take on Jerry's persona and show Jerry what it looks like, what it feels like to interact with someone else as beautiful as him, then someone who doesn't have high self-esteem, their self-esteem can go higher. So these empaths have the ability and power to not only have fun, but also to be guides and teachers to us. Because sometimes your best teacher can only be yourself. Sometimes the best teacher can only be yourself. So when you can't see you, like I can see a part of me, but I can't step outside of me, look back and be like, that bald head guy kind of cool. I can only see a reflection or mirror of me being me, but to actually see someone who represents me, represents my energy, and see it from the outside, it's a beautiful thing. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You have had experiences with people and they have touched your life the way other people say you touched them. And you're like, oh, is that what it feels like? That's what it feels like to make somebody laugh like that at a low point? Is that what it feels like to have a conversation with someone and listen and truly hear them, wow, I feel a little bit better about myself. Wow, I need to do this more because I see me now and someone else. And that's what those mirror empaths do. So I think that's just a really, really, really cool thing. It's what I believe. If you know an actor, please share this with them. Because I don't think many people know about it. Or maybe they're just smarter than me. I didn't really know about it. The other is an intellectual empath. I call this the snobby empath. So if you're talking to someone, you begin to, if they use big words, somehow, some way, the big word vocabulary starts coming in your mind. If they're a straight talker, somehow that comes into your mind. You automatically feel and understand the way someone intellectually processes information. The way you speak gives you insight on the way you process information. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? Do you feel what I'm saying? All these different words are being used. The intellectual empath just picks up on it. I saw something pop up in the chat, like a blinking light. If there's a question, Casey, just feel free to jump in and stop. Spiritual intuition. This is a neat one. This is someone's ability to understand how other people connect with God or connect with the universe or connect with spirituality. So for me, different religions feel different. It's not that one way is wrong. It's almost like, is one personality wrong? Is being shy wrong? Is being outgoing wrong? So I kind of feel that. So you can go in a religious environment. You can go in a Hindu environment. You can go in a Buddhist environment. You can go in a Christian environment or a Sikh environment. And when you are there, you feel the path that somebody walks to get to God. You feel the path that God comes to that person. So spiritual empath is pretty cool. Spiritual empaths are able to evolve and accelerate in ways quicker and bigger than most people ever can. Spiritual empath is also good at something called transurfing, which is what we're going to talk about towards the end of the summer. The ability to tap in to other realities and surf that reality until that reality penetrates into this life and reality. Crystal empaths have a thing about crystals. You know them, you feel them, you use them. You're able to do crystal grids and things of that sort. All right. Last time we had a crystal meeting, I didn't have this grid readily available, but these are the things that people do with crystal grids, signs, the shape, and they put crystals here. Talk about that. Mechanical empath is super cool. That means you kind of know what's wrong with a machine without you being mechanically gifted or looking underneath. It's just kind of like you feel your laptop. And now that you know it exists, for anybody who is a mechanical empath, naturally, you're going to automatically know you can reach out and feel your laptop. Is it going wrong? Is the left side stronger than the right? Is it strong and vibrant, or is it weak and dying? You kind of just feel it. That's it. Any questions?
Yeah, we have a question. Muskan is asking, are counselors, psychologists mirror empath?
Okay, so I heard the beginning part. Are counselors and psychologists, are they empaths? Did she ask a particular type of empath or just empaths in general?
In general.
Okay. So the job role, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. The quick answer wants me to say yes. All right. So first of all, everybody is an empath. The only question is, what kind are you? I was a psychology major. I majored in psychology in college. I got a BS in psychology. And I find that most psychologists, okay, are either emotional or intellectual empaths. That does not mean a mechanical empath can't be a psychologist, but it does mean that the best psychologists and counselors are able to tap into their natural ability of being a particular type of empath and use it to their advantage. Okay, it's a great question. But I want to make sure we remember, most people, it's not like I'm introducing something to the world, but for those people who are aware of what an empath is, they naturally think of the emotional empath that can seem a little bit too sensitive, or their emotions can be all over the place. On the worst end, without the shield, empaths take their own lives, suicide, because they have all these emotions that go up and down. They kind of think they're going crazy and they feel bad, and not realizing that they have a gift, a talent, a blessing that ends up eating them up. Was there another question, Casey?
Yeah, there is another question. Are you currently doing readings for people?
Am I currently?
Bobo is asking.
Oh,
doing
yeah.
readings for people.
I do readings every day.
No, are you doing?
Yeah,
for
I do it
everybody?
every day. I just never defined it as being a reading. I told our whole team what was happening with the coronavirus, and that it was going to be 16 months before things came out. I didn't put up a sign and said, "Hear ye, hear ye. I am an empath psychic, and I predict." I do it in business all the time. So to answer the question is yes. There's some people who see me as just being like an empath or psychic or spiritually gifted in that way, and they talk to me like that. But I don't charge people fees or what have you. I just kind of live and use all the tools. That's what Spiritual Sunday is really all about, the different tools that I have experience with and what I use myself. Who asked that question?
He's asking, how do we get involved with you?
You are now. If anybody I meet, to me, is my family. If you hear me or see me or come to an event or read one of my books or get on this, yeah, there really is no difference in people. I love you just as much as I love my son, as much as I love my mother, my wife. I have the same love for everybody. Love is unlimited. So, yeah, this is the way. We have the meetup group. You can always Google me. I'm definitely on social media. So,
if I may, thank you for your, thank you for what you said about me, and you are right on. One of the things I found out from many years of being involved in this is because we are closer to the energy, to the quantum field, whatever you want to call it, we have it flowing through us at such a high degree percentage that I want to confirm what you said. It's just when you interface with people, they seem to like you. I don't have any enemies in my life. Never did. They all wanted to be in my presence, to hear what I had to say, and to be with me, whether it be family or anything else. Do you see this also? Is that kind of what you've been telling us about?
Yeah, mine is kind of at the extreme, Jerry, and touches upon a very sensitive topic. So, in the USA, is Black Lives Matter is going on right now. Okay. So let me be very clear. Racism does exist. There are people who judge people by race, and bad, horrible things happen. They don't happen to me. They don't happen to me. I have seen them happen to my friends. I have seen it happen to my family. So don't get me wrong. The things and atrocities that we see in our country does exist. They don't happen to me. The energy that I attract, and when I come in contact with people that have the negative energy that want to harm, so many different sides of the empath comes out, to the mirror empath, to the emotional empath, down to mechanical. It's like you have all these tools in your arsenal. It prevents you from having harm done to you where other people would have harm done to them. That doesn't mean by any stretch of the means that the fact that somebody has less tools in their toolbox than I have, that they deserve that harm, or because their past somehow caught up to them and their karma and their luck demands that they receive harm. No. What I'm saying is, when you tap into being a true empath and channeling the right energy the right way, then not only are you protected, not only do you heal, but you also uplift the planet. And that's why right now, empaths are definitely needed. The ability to feel and see things from another perspective, versus everything that I judge Jerry for is based on Will Harris's life. But if I grew up, I believe, if I grew up and was born on the same birthday as Jerry, to the same parents, and had the same name, and had the same childhood friends, and fell down and hurt my left knee on the same day that Jerry did, and went to the same school and had the teachers make the same remark, and I had the same brain capacity as Jerry, I would make the same damn mistakes as Jerry. And I would have the same positive things as Jerry. So how can Will Harris look at Jerry and judge him on anything? I think that's what the gurus meant when they said judge not. Don't judge other people, because we haven't really walked a kilometer or a mile in someone else's shoes. We just been in our own shoes, judging you from our shoes. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Casey, any other questions? And I've been talking a whole lot. Anybody has comments or their own experience, just like Jerry said? Feel free.
We have question. So Mobo is saying that I don't know what is his name. He said, thank you, I'm figuring out.
Mobo says.
Okay, where is he saying that thank you, I'm trying to figure out my life's purpose. Thank you, Will, I'm so glad I found you. And there is one message from Annie. She says, sir, how do you manage to maintain the aura of highly positive energy which everyone can feel around you?
Well, thank you. Well, Casey is reading it and probably says, I know those hours where he doesn't radiate that positive. So I meditate every day. I go to bed at 8:30. I wake up at 4. I meditate from 4 to 5, and then I work out from 5 to 6:30, and then my day begins. I get upset and mad at people, just like anybody else. But I rebound quicker. So much so that Casey really gets ticked off by that. Like, how can you forgive them? Or why do you give them so much of your time? This is a daily thing that she says to me. And for me, I really believe that we are one. And when you're thinking and the way you see the world is at the point where I can't make it really until Jerry makes it, until Muskan makes it. That's when we all make it, then I make it. And when you look at the world that way, it's kind of like one of my mentors, a guy named John White, told me. He said, "You know what, Will? If you want to do miracles like Jesus, then you have to start thinking like Jesus. So when you adjust the way you think, the way you look at the world, the way you see, that's when you start to radiate the same frequency of your thoughts. That's all it is. You raise your thoughts, you raise your vibrations. You raise your vibrations, then you push out more stuff. But I get upset too. Trust me, I'm definitely not perfect. It's just that when I mess up, I admit it super quick. And when you can admit it and not try to hide from it, it's easier to bounce back from it. And then you create a habit with the synapses in your brains and even the way you think, so that you quickly stay in that positive zone and energy versus losing your cool and keeping it lost. I saw another chat blink. Was that a question, Casey? Or I guess I can look now.
Yeah. No, there is no more question. Muskan says, yes, I aspire to be a psychologist one day. I believe this will help me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody, if you know the type of empath you are, you can very easily Google that type of empath and you'll see exercises and things that you can do. Next Sunday, we speak on reincarnation. And I'm excited to talk about that as I am about today, because I'm 48. And when I was 28, I absolutely didn't believe in reincarnation. I come from a straight Christian background, about as Christian as you can get. So the aspect of reincarnation and all of that, yeah, I wasn't down with it back then. But now I would say that I absolutely believe in reincarnation and have some tangible things that have persuaded me to change my thoughts on it. And I put a quote from Edgar Casey, the gentleman who was the medical empath I described. And his quote was, "You have inherited more from yourself than you have from your family." You have inherited more from yourself than you have from your family. And your family is only a river through which your soul flows. I can absolutely tell you that Kiesia is more my sister than if my mother and father had a daughter. That Shubham is more my brother than if my mother and father had another child. That we have a spiritual family, a spiritual connection. And whether or not you're hearing me for the first time or for the 1,000th time, we're all family, we're all connected, we're all one. And when we're able to drop the thought process of just how's my family doing in my house and realize the family is within your planet, that's when we will be able to see less problems on the planet. That's why reincarnation and understanding it, this is one way. I had a fear of public speaking. Reincarnation and understanding that helped me to get rid of that fear of public speaking. And I gave a speech to 800,000 people live. It's on video. I'm not making it up. It's people on this webinar that was there. But to know that the person that spoke to 800,000 people live in another country, when probably only 8 understood my English, it's kind of wow when you realize I also had a fear of public speaking. So there are some tangible things that can happen with the exercises and the way we look at reincarnation. So please sign up. I think the class was max at, it was at 20, and I raised it up to 25 the following week. This time I raised it up to 30, and then I screwed it up by having the wrong link. So we didn't have as many people on this call as was set up to, which now I know whatever number we have when I look back, because I just jumped in, that's probably the max that we can have in our group, because there's just so many questions. I mean, we're not talking fluff. So if you're...
Yeah, and one question, don't we choose this path? I guess we can cover this in reincarnation.
Okay. The question was, don't we choose this path? Yeah, that's a quick answer. Yes, it's called a soul contract. And I'll talk about that during the reincarnation further. Cool.
Not muted.
All right. The meetup page lets you know anything far in advance. If you have questions, I think eventually, you know, the more we do this, people will see, well, let me get my questions in. Because one thing I noticed that the class is going to start changing, and I'm going to try to stick to like an hour and a half. Now, but I don't even know how long I've been talking on this. But I want to make it so the schedule is more predictable. So if you have any questions about the future ones, topics that I can prepare ahead of time and include in, please feel free to do so. Anyone who asks about connecting to me, I was down to earth you can get. I even give you my cell number if you ask. So just message me. And if I can help you, I absolutely will. Cool. So for any fathers that are on the line, or just maybe two, just me and you, Jerry, just getting all the love, all the daddy love. Yeah. Whatever. Everybody knows Mother's Day gets more love than Daddy's Day. Probably rightly so. They did have to carry the baby for 9 months. Or as my wife says, 9+ months. It's not like 9 months they come out. But happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of your fathers, wherever they are.
Thank you. Thank you from this side.
Yeah. All right, with that, I'm going to say goodbye and go up and get my cupcakes, because it's noon. It's always noon somewhere. That's my excuse for eating cupcakes.
Bye.